So I watched that movie Keeper. Now the trailers didn't really look interesting for me. The director of this movie is the director who did Long Legs, which I love, and also directed The Monkey, which I thought was mediocre. And for me personally, this is the worst film done by this director so far. I haven't seen this other director's movies, but out of those three, this is the worst film so far, in my opinion, with this director. The only positive I have about this movie is that the actress who played She-Hulk in the She-Hulk show, she was also in The Monkey as a mom. I thought as the mom of one of the no, both the kids in the movie The Monkey. Tatiana, which I hope I'm pronouncing the actress' name right, the first name. I think she's great in this movie, and I would say another positive is that there's some decent atmosphere in this movie, and that's really all the positives of this movie. Next with the movie is that the characters aren't interesting. I never felt invested in her character. I never felt invested in the the actor who's supposed to be playing the guy she's with and his character. They were both just dull characters I won't interest in. This movie's extremely slow also. I don't have a problem with slow movies if you build up tension in a way that's compelling. If you get me invested in a story, invested in the characters, then you can have a slow burn movie. There's a difference though between a slow burn and just an extremely boring, dull, slow movie. This movie moves at a pace that is just so ridiculously boring in this movie. The story never hooked me. I never got invested in the story. The characters aren't interesting. Like her performance is great in this movie, but her character is just so thin in this movie. Same with the guy's character. And there's also times in this movie, like the example of this is there's a scene where they're making out and he's like, "Oh, why don't you have this piece of cake that was sent over to the cabin where he takes her to?" I'm just like, they're making out, and all of a sudden he's like trying to get her to have a piece of cake. I'm like, this dialogue in that moment it feels so unnatural. That's one thing I hate out in movies is when you have characters talking to each other and they have dialogue where you go like, nobody talks like that in the real world. Nobody would talk to each other like that in the real world. And that dialogue just comes off awkward, unnatural. So I had an issue with the dialogue at times in this movie, which I do think is pretty bad at times and awkward and unnatural, and just like people don't talk like that in the real world. So the dialogue was an issue for me in this movie. The two actors had zero chemistry in this movie. I never felt any chemistry between these two lead actors in this movie. Like I never bought into their relationship or felt they had any chemistry whatsoever in this movie. So that was another problem with this film for me. And like I said, it's so slow. It's ridiculous how just dull and boring this movie is with the plot. It moves such at a pace where you just like I found myself tuning out a lot of times in this movie. So the story's not compelling. Where it goes at the end with the supernatural stuff, I was just like I just didn't find myself invested in that part of the story. Like you find out later on, the guy she's with has brought previous girlfriends up to this cabin, and he's immortal Astley, and he's been feeding his girlfriends to this this supernatural element that the cabinet's keeping him immortal, and it's just like I just didn't like how they look in the movie. Looks okay, these supernatural things, but I just like the supernatural element in the movie. I just didn't care for, and I just like I said, I never got invested in the story in this movie. What in these characters? I was just like, in the way it ends, I was just kind of like, okay. I just was very lukewarm on the ending of this movie too. So overall, Keeper I thought was just terrible. I just found this to be one of the worst horror movies of the year. Story's not good, characters aren't interesting. It's extremely dull and boring. And for me, it's definitely his worst movie that I've seen from this director so far. So that's my thoughts on Keeper. Until next time, movie fans.